All right, welcome everyone. We are going to begin the forum in about 1 minute. And before we start, I would like to welcome the candidates and the audience members here to the Los Altos City Council Candidate Forum. I'm Abby Longcor with the League of Women Voters, and I will be today's moderator. A few housekeeping items. Our forum will last 1 hour and is being recorded by KMVT. You can see them up on the slide. All League forums that are recorded will be available on our elections page, lwvlamb.org, about 2 days after each event. They'll also be available on our YouTube channel through our website. The questions we have for the candidates today were submitted in advance through member suggestions. When you enter tonight, for the audience members, you were also offered 3x5 cards to use to submit your own questions. We've combined similar questions to be able to cover as many topics as possible. If time permits, the moderator will ask for additional questions from the question sorters, and all questions will be suitable to be asked for all candidates. So everyone will answer the same questions tonight for the audience. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization of all genders that promotes informed, active participation in government. We do not support, oppose, or evaluate political candidates or parties, but after careful study, we do take positions on some political issues. The League invites anyone who is interested in supporting democracy and local government to join us. You'll also find our easy voter guides, lists of our forums, voter registration forms, and other helpful information right here on this back table. I encourage all of you to grab anything that is of interest on your way out. So now a little bit about Los Altos and this particular office. Los Altos is a city of about 30,000 people, and the city council has 5 members. You may vote for 3 of these candidates in this cycle, and the ballots will be mailed on October 7th, so you can expect your ballot to arrive shortly in the mail after that. The format for today's forum is that each candidate will get 2 minutes to make an opening statement. We've asked each candidate to include the qualifications, experience, and strength that will make them suited to this office. The questions were selected to be relevant to all the candidates and provide some useful information about issues in this race. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. And finally, each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Our timer will signal each candidate when 15 seconds remain with a little 15-second sign. And then our timer will also signal with a stop sign when time has expired. We ask our candidates to abide by the following. Speaking order will be rotated, so each candidate will have at least 1 chance to speak first. Time limits. When the stop sign is held up, I will say thank you. Feel free to finish your sentence, and then we will move on to the next candidate or question. 3, respect. Candidates will not interrupt each other. 4, fairness. Campaign marketing materials will not be worn or visible in this room. Now, with all of our housekeeping out of the way, I would like to introduce, in alphabetical order, the 5 candidates we have who are running for Los Altos City Council, all of whom are joining us tonight. We're so excited to hear from you. So first is Ibrahim Bashir.
Hello.
Then we have Larry Lang.
Hello.
Sally Meadows. Eric Steinle.
Hello.
And Jonathan Weinberg.
Hello.
Okay, thank you all so much for participating in today's forum. We're really excited to get to talk to you, and we are now ready to begin. So I've been asked by the candidates, and I think it's a brilliant suggestion, to state the order of answering before each question. So I will try to do that. Candidates, if I forget, feel free to prompt me. We're all working together here to get the Los Altos voters the information they need to make an informed choice on their vote. So for opening statements, the order will be Ibrahim, Larry, Sally, Eric, and Jonathan. So with that, as I mentioned, please include the strengths, qualities, and experience that you believe will convince the audience to vote for you. And we will start with you, Ibrahim.
Thank you. Alrighty, like we just covered, my name is Ibrahim Bashir, and I'm running for City Council. I have lived in the city for nearly a decade, and I think it's very, very important for any resident that lives here to engage in the fabric of the community, which is the main reason why I'm running. So in my nearly decade-long tenure here, I have done a variety of public service work. I have been on the Covington Technology Committee, where all 3 of my kids have gone to school. I've been a Junior Olympics track coach for LASD. I have served on the Library Commission, and I was even elected the chair of the Library Commission. And I think the thing I bring, or the thing I brought to all these roles and that I would bring to the council is, number one, I have a strong background in strategic prioritization. I think as a city, we are faced with a variety of issues that we need to sort out that will affect the next decade, from housing to safety to climate action to vibrancy. 2, I think I'm a phenomenal communicator, and I have the ability to collaborate with residents, with peers on the council, with residents of all walks of life, of all age groups, families young and old. And lastly, I think I bring a strong amount of common sense so that we can actually focus, shortlist, and get things done in a regular, seasonable order. Last, I just want to end by saying the stance I've taken on various policy issues is something that a lot of other organizations are fans of as well. So for my climate action posture, I have been supported and endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters and 350 Silicon Valley Action. For my approach on vibrancy, I've been endorsed by former Mayor Jean Mordeau. The Santa Clara County Democratic Party is also endorsing me, and I'm the only candidate in this race endorsed by Local 1165, our firefighters union, because of my posture on emergency preparedness. So I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It's very useful. And thank you to the residents, both here in person and watching on video, for investing the time to inform yourself as you decide the best people to represent you on the city. Okay. For those who are celebrating Shana Tova, the holidays are upon us, and so I hope you have a great time with your family and friends. My name is Larry Lang. I lived in Los Altos for over 25 years. Like many others, I moved to this area to work in technology. I've helped companies large and small grow through innovation, collaboration, and careful financial management. Now, when I sold my last startup company, I was really glad to have more time to give back to the community. And now I recently concluded 2 4-year terms on the Historical Commission and 2 terms as president of the Los Altos History Museum. We made progress in a lot of areas, but one that I'm particularly proud of is that we reached an agreement with the city to take on stewardship of the Heritage Orchard. We planted almost 300 new trees and installed state-of-the-art drip irrigation. And I think it's fair to say the orchard looks better than it has in decades. Now, I bring this up not just because of the orchard itself, but because I think it gives an example of experience with building public-private partnerships. And I think that's going to be a very important thing for the city over the coming term. There's various places, projects with the library, projects with the theater, and most notably projects with building new housing downtown that are going to involve some understanding of the subtleties of how that all works, familiarity with working with the city manager and the talented city staff to get that done. And I think that helped me build that kind of thing. The last thing I'll just say is that as the residents think about who they want to vote for, there are so many resources. There's our respective websites, there have been other forums and so forth, and I'll ask you to review that and hopefully decide to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sally Meadows. I'm running for re-election to the Los Altos City Council. I'm sorry to have missed last week's forum, but I'm ecstatic to be here this evening. So because I wasn't at last week's forum, I watched it. And what did I notice? I noticed that the candidates were aligned on decisions and goals past and present. And so why was that? And that's because, the answer is, because this council is doing a good job, as are the 2 incumbents sitting at this table. And in fact, if you compare council's goals on the city website, which I have right here in front of me, you will see that there's an uncanny resemblance to what each candidate has identified as priorities, because this council is doing a good job and has identified these priorities as what we should all move forward with. Now let's talk about commitment. I've lived in Los Altos for 28 years. I'm running as an incumbent, but even more so as a community's volunteer. I've spent the past 15 years supporting our community in volunteer and board leaderships. I've proven my commitment to our city and community. So I'm running for re-election to build on the accomplishments of the last 4 years. We achieved a balanced budget. We reduced legal expenses. We improved public safety, including implementing automated license plate readers. We've made investments in and started work on our Emergency Operations Center, and we approved bike lanes on El Camino Real. Our housing element was certified by the state, and we've rezoned over half of the non-single-family home zoning to facilitate development. And no, the city doesn't build housing, but we can collaborate with developers to hopefully get a project that brings public benefits. So I am confident we can preserve our beautiful, diverse city even as we grow and change.
Thank you. Eric.
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone here, and thank you to the League for sponsoring this. And it's delightful to have Sally with us in more than spirit. So I'm Eric Steinley. I'm the 2024 chair of the Planning Commission, and I'm running for City Council to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the people in Los Altos and to find Los Altos solutions for Los Altos problems. I was appointed a library commissioner in 2019 and a planning commissioner in 2020. I attend all city council meetings, beginning to end, no matter how long they run, and I also study the entire packet before the meeting. I'm a lawyer by training. I know the complex set of laws that govern much of what happens in the city, the Government Code, the California Environmental Quality Act, and our own municipal code. On the Planning Commission, I worked on the design review objective standards and the update of the housing element. For 14 years, I've been the president of my homeowners association. A homeowners association board of directors is functionally very much like the city council because it is collaborative and requires getting a majority of the votes to do anything. My experience in city government and my experience as a lawyer, my expertise, and as a board president give me skills I can use to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the people in Los Altos. Those skills include the ability to explain things clearly, to organize and run meetings effectively, to synthesize complex material, and to collaborate. My working values are patience, persistence, and preparation. My objective in everything is to find Los Altos solutions for Los Altos problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Jonathan.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you to everyone who is in our audience joining us, and a very special thank you to the League. I know that a lot of work goes into putting on all the forums that you do. It's a tremendously valuable service that you are performing for the community. So thank you not just for this forum, but for all the forums that you put on. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jonathan Weinberg, and I am currently serving as the mayor of our city. I first ran for the council 4 years ago, and it has been an absolute delight and an honor to serve as your representative. When I first ran for this office, I promised to strengthen our city's budget, to extricate the city from lawsuits that were costing taxpayers millions of dollars, and to adopt sensible and sustainable policies that protect our city's natural beauty. Working collaboratively with residents and with my colleagues on the council, I've kept my promises and really accomplished so much more. I am delighted to report to you that as mayor this year, I led our council to adopt a balanced budget on time and which is projecting a $3 million surplus. Tonight, I'm looking forward to highlighting many of the changes and benefits that I felt to bring to our community, including a plan to develop more affordable housing in Los Altos, policies designed to make Los Altos carbon neutral by 2035, and plans to significantly improve the interior and exterior of our main library, and to improve our playgrounds, fields, and pathways in our parks. My record demonstrates that I have the skills and experience to move the city forward in a way that benefits us all. And tonight, I look forward to highlighting more of my achievements and ideas to help maintain Los Altos as a wonderful place to live and to protect our natural beauty.
Thank you. Okay, so just a reminder, we are going to move into our questions now. All of the questions, you'll have 1 minute to answer, and as well as 1 minute for your closing statement when we get there. So we are prototyping a little bit of our structure for forums today. This is our first in-person forum since 2018, so I'm going to read out the order of the candidates answering before I read the question. I feel like that'll be easier for folks, but we'll see how we go. So first question, the order is going to be Larry, Sally, Eric, Jonathan, and Ibrahim. And I will call you by name when it is your turn to talk, so don't worry, you don't need to keep track of that. So the first question is, what is the city doing well? Where is improvement needed? And what are 1 or 2 changes you would make? And we'll go to Larry first.
So I think the city's doing well in a number of areas. I think Sally said quite well that generally the city's on track, and you won't hear a lot of argument about that. But there's always room for improvement. One area that I think is always important to pay attention to, something that I hear repeatedly when I'm out ringing doorbells, talking to neighbors, and so forth, is about the safe streets particularly safe for the kids to be able to get to school. And this is one of those things where you just know we'll never be done with this. There's always room for improvement, or room for more signals, more process, more teaching. The one thing I'd say, particularly those watching, one of the things I've taken away from that is that's not just a city issue, that's a personal issue. And when I've heard these entreaties again and again, I got to say I'm more careful about putting the phone where I can't see it, slowing down a little bit. And I'd suggest that for all of us. I think that's an area, though, that safety on our streets, particularly for our kids, is a place where we'll never stop needing to improve.
Okay, thank you so much. Sally, same question.
All right, thank you. So we've gotten really good at budgeting and financial policies and exercising discipline. We've implemented reserve funds for a number of things, including reserve building fund, which will be part of the pathway to replacing our public safety infrastructure. We've also implemented a total compensation philosophy. Believe it or not, we used to target below market rate salaries for our staff. We're no longer doing that, thank heavens. What we could improve, as Larry mentioned, safe routes to school, but I would also say wireless. We've gotten out from the mess we got ourselves into about 4 or 5 years ago, but we need to make up ground because our wireless and broadband is still not what it should be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And Eric.
Well, I have to agree with what Sally and Larry have said and what I'm sure Jonathan will say. We're doing very well. And thanks to Jonathan and Sally and their colleagues, nieces here, for doing a spectacular job, particularly when it comes to the budget. Cars. That's really the thing I think we as a city could do more work on. Transportation, getting around, under control. Parking is part of it. Traffic is part of it. The safe routes to schools is obviously part of that. And reducing our carbon footprint, a big part of that will be to have fewer cars going fewer places. So we need to find a way to get people around without necessarily having them get in their cars and drive. That's something I would like to see the council working on. This is a long time thing, but I'd like to see us get this started with that. I walk. So should everybody else.
Okay.
Good for the back. It's good for the back, they tell me.
All right, thank you so much. And next is Jonathan. Same question.
Thank you. I have to agree with the very first point that Sally made especially. We really have done a very good job when it comes to budgeting and managing the city's finances. This is sort of an under the radar, under the water sort of accomplishment, but it is so important. If you don't have your finances in order, you are not going to be able to accomplish the other goals that you set for yourself and for the city to move forward. Not only have we been able to put ourselves in a position to succeed and provide positive amenities and benefits to the community, but we've attracted an excellent city staff right now, which is stable and is able to help us move forward as quickly and efficiently as possible. In terms of where I think we need to improve, that has to do with our climate action plan. We have a climate action and adaptation plan which calls for the city to be carbon neutral by 2035. We are behind on that. I think that there are affirmative things we can do that most of the city will support. One of them is to encourage electrification in a positive way, but that's something I think that we really have to take up.
Okay, thank you so much. And Ibrahim, same question.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting the way you framed the question, what's going well, what needs improvement, and what needs changing. In my 20 years of private sector experience building products, we regularly do exercises like this called start, stop, continue. So very, very familiar with the model. In terms of what's going well, look, I think housing, getting more housing built and more affordable housing built is the number one priority for the city. And I think the current council has done a great job with the housing element. So I think that's going really well. And if I were to win and be appointed to council, I would look forward to actually executing on that housing element in a financially disciplined and creative way. In terms of improvement, I'll agree with Larry. I actually think safe routes to school could use some improvement. Where I'd sort of veer off in a different direction is I think as a parent of 3 kids, 2 of whom are in elementary school, 1 in high school, I intimately understand what that commute is like, whether you're walking, biking, or running 10 seconds on the light. So I think bringing that perspective will be important. And the third that I would change is engagement with the community, more of it.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so our next question, the order is going to be Sally, Eric, Jonathan, Ibrahim, and Larry last. And with that, our second question is actually about the housing element. So the housing element led to zoning changes and parking plazas being considered for development, but no projects have been proposed in the last 2 years. What ideas do you have to attract and facilitate multifamily housing and especially affordable housing projects? We'll go first to Sally.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. Nothing like a complicated topic in 1 minute. So I will point out that our housing element was adopted in January 23 and approved in September 23. So it's been a year. Not to say that we couldn't have had proposals. As everyone's aware, the financial market has not been conducive to raising money for housing, especially affordable housing. The parking plazas is a somewhat different situation, parking plazas 7 and 8, where we've proposed, again, a public-private partnership where the city can put up the land, whether sale or lease, for use by a developer who would offer not just housing, but certain public benefits, whether that be parking spaces or it be a park, or you can imagine all sorts of community benefits. So I think with the change in the financial climate, which hopefully is getting better and interest rates going down, we should be able to get more, because our zoning is favorable now. It's really up to the economic environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric.
I agree with everything that Sally said, which makes my answer much easier. There's very little that we can do positively that we haven't already done. We can explore hybrid situations such as the private-public partnership, looking at more mixed use, that is a mix of commercial and residential, as a way perhaps of leveraging some of that private capital, if any actually became available. But there's not much we can do about the price of land and the costs that are associated with that. So apart from crossing our fingers and praying, there isn't much we can do to get things started right now. But we can explore some things, at least around the edges, that we could do to help out as far as the financial situation is concerned.
Thank you. Okay, Jonathan, same question.
So Sally and Eric are both correct. Sally and Eric, of course, are both correct. And as Sally pointed out earlier, the city does not actually build housing. The city makes it easier for developers to come in and build housing. I think the one thing that the city really needs to do is make sure that we get a reputation as being pro-housing. We have sought, and we think we were awarded, a pro-housing delegation. And I thank my colleagues on council who all agreed to move forward and seek that designation. But the reality is that Los Altos, for a very long time, has been a very hostile place to developers. One of the lawsuits that I mentioned that we extricated the city from had to do with the city impermissibly denying a developer the authority, the ability to build more housing downtown. That was a wrong decision. It was a decision contrary to law. It was something that we had to get out of. I'm glad that I was able to help lead the council to get us out of that. But those are the sorts of things that we have to make sure people know are in the past, and we have to make sure developers know that we're going to cooperate and work with them in the future.
Thank you. Okay, Ibrahim, same question.
Yeah, while I agree the macroeconomic climate might not be conducive to development, it's really not in my nature to sort of accept circumstances and just go with it. The housing element basically says we have to build 1,948 units in the next 8 years, and I don't think macroeconomic climate is tough is a reasonable excuse to the state. Who knows how they might take that? So I would actually maybe take a slightly more creative approach. Number one, Los Altos is not the only city trying to develop more housing or more affordable housing. We should talk to our neighbors, see how they're approaching it. Mountain View, Palo Alto Hills, etc. Number two, I think we have a lot of incentives we can offer developers, and we should have a community engaged discussion on which of those incentives are we willing to trade and which are off limits. Parking, market rate for the parking lots, etc. The third thing I would say is when you have a reputation as not a developer-friendly city, the number one most important thing we can do is to change that reputation. And so I would treat that as the first domino. So instead of saying, how do we build X number of developments, I would turn it into how do we get that first development built to change the temperature.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And Larry.
So thank you. There's clearly a lot of agreement about this, and I'll just maybe emphasize the particular part about this notion that I addressed in my opening remarks about this public-private partnership, right? A key part of that is being relentlessly constructive. Things come up along the way unforeseeable things. And a part about a partnership is respecting that, understanding the other party's needs to be successful, but also being clear about the city's needs to be respected. I think one of the things that went wrong with the Distal thing was there was sort of a break in that good faith. There was a sort of a feeling that good faith broke down. And that's unfortunate because it makes the public a little bit more worried about those projects. And then that's not a good thing either, right? We need the public to be excited about these, see them as opportunities to bring new people into our city and be positive about that. The other thing I'll say is we need to be holistic in the planning. None of these projects would happen with the snap of a finger. And we need to make sure important parts of our community, notably the merchants downtown, can continue their businesses successfully through the time.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, and for the next question, the order is going to be Eric, Jonathan, Ibrahim, Larry, and then Sally. So question 3 is, what issues do residents mention to you most often? What do you reply? And how do you plan to stay in touch with constituents? Eric?
I think communication is the one thing that people, in various forms, they sometimes talk about transparency, sometimes talk about communication, but knowing what's going on. We all have the experience of hearing people say, I didn't know this happened, after you've had 18 meetings and umpteen postcards, etc. So how do we do that? I think the thing is for the council to become the megaphone. We have staff sending out postcards for things and sending out emails and that sort of thing, and that's good. But I think the council can be more active. One of the things that happened during the district election discussion was staff would go set up little pop-ups in the grocery stores, and people would come by and talk. Why can't a city council member go sit in a grocery store on a Saturday afternoon and talk? We need to do more of that kind of thing, actually directly go and engage the way we do during the election.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, same question.
Thank you. Without question, what I hear more often than anything else is a concern about safe routes to school. Like Ibrahim, I have 2 kids who are attending our public schools. Both of them go to Los Altos High. They hate it when I talk about them. They get embarrassed about it, even though they're not here. But look, let's face it. We have 4 different school districts in the city of Los Altos. We have a number of private schools. There are different schools with different community needs. We have streets that were laid out in the 1950s. There's lots of dead ends, cul-de-sacs. Simply put, our schools are accommodating more students than was originally intended when the schools were originally planned 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. The Complete Streets Master Plan is a great place to start, but as we've seen with what happened at Jardine, we need to take a very serious look at how it is we're going about our safe routes to school. And the one community that I think we have not properly engaged yet are the students who are actually going to school.
Okay, thank you. And Ibrahim, same question.
Yes, so I've actually been going door to door since April and canvassing, and I've been doing a lot of meet and greets. And the number one issue I actually hear about is community engagement. It's not one specific facet of it, but just a general frustration on what is the role of council? How does that differ from all of the other parties at play, whether it's staff, whether it's school boards, sort of a general desire to be educated on how one might participate in the civic process. And 2, an inaccessibility to engage in the ways that are afforded right now. So, hey, I can't show up, on Tuesday evenings twice a month. Is there a different way where I can have my voice heard? So I generally feel the pain of many, many residents who feel like their voice is not being heard. And I agree with Eric. I think there's a lot of creative solutions we can bring to the table. As I've been canvassing, the thought has crossed my mind, if I were to win, what's to stop me from canvassing even after, right? I have gone and hung out at the farmers market on Thursdays, have numerous residents who come through there that you can talk to and pick their brain. And I think there's many, many other forums and venues where people congregate and gather, where they want to hear from their elected leaders. And so that's what I would focus on.
Thank you. All right, Larry.
Yeah, it certainly is fun to ring that doorbell and wonder what's going to come out at you. I'd say one surprising thing is just how much I've been providing one-on-one, door-to-door civics education. Is people are curious about what's going on with districting or the housing element or whatever. And just as somebody who pays more attention, going through that, explaining what's involved. Aside from that, though, I would agree that the safety of the streets is the thing I hear. And maybe that's a little bit more top of mind for me. I spent a lot of time this past week around Covington. There's 5 schools in that area. The traffic in that area is really challenging. I think one of the things that we have to accept with this is that it's going to be an iterative process, that you're going to try things and then the real world will change, or you might not have something right. I think we've had that iterative process around the high school where we tried some stuff, got feedback, made it better. We're going to have to keep doing that. That's going to be a never-ending process.
Thank you. And Sally.
All right. So one thing I've learned over 12 years of being involved with city government, design review, planning commission, and city council is that the issues change. So, I mean, you'd be shocked how many people, their main issue was the dog parks, mostly based on misinformation. Jardin was a big thing. A pizza place that shall remain nameless was a big thing a few months back. I still haven't bought one of their pizzas. But what I try to do is to provide context, because people usually don't have the context. They have the point in time. They don't have the thread. And I feel like I am able to provide the thread. Doesn't always make it better, but I will always meet with anyone. I will not sugarcoat it. If you're unhappy about something and you have a reason to be, I'll say, I understand why you feel that way. I don't try to change it. I try to listen. And that's what the job is.
Thank you. Okay, so for the next question, the order we will go in will be Jonathan, Ibrahim, Larry, Sally, and Eric. So this question is, a lack of affordable childcare impacts employees and residents. What ideas do you have to address this? And we'll go first to Jonathan.
Thank you very much. This is a great question. As it just so happens, Councilmember Nisa Flagler and I have formed a subcommittee to investigate ways that the city can help support childcare for families that are in need. Los Altos is known as a wealthy community. It is thought that everyone who lives here has a lot of money, no one needs assistance, and that's simply not true. We know especially a lot of our older adults are perhaps house rich, property rich, but not necessarily asset rich. But there are other people, other members of our community that have young families, that need childcare, that need pre-kindergarten education. There are parts of our community, not just residents, city staff, employees who come and work in the city all day long. It is incumbent upon the city to find ways to help promote the ability for those people to have access to affordable childcare. And I think that Nisa and I are going to do a very good job proposing some ideas to the community.
Okay, thank you. Ibrahim, same question.
Yeah, I think before you even think about tackling a problem, it's really, really important to have a deep understanding and empathy for the problem. And childcare or lack of childcare is something my wife and I have struggled with over the years. In fact, it was a reason why only one of us worked for a number of years. And now, if not for the post-COVID blessing of work from home, neither of us would be able to have the careers we have. So I think we have a deep, deep understanding of the problem. The second thing I would say is, there are things you can do at a local city council level, but then some of these issues transcend regional and get into the state level. And I think there are states who have tackled this problem in better ways than California. And one of the things that this role affords you is access to assembly members and state senators to ideate on solutions that could be then brought at the local level. So that's how I would approach it.
Great, thank you. Larry, same question.
Yeah, I think a key aspect of this is something that sort of to generalize something from Ibrahim said, which is the work from home. I think more generally, this is a place where city council with the city employees and so forth can model the behavior of flexibility. I think a key part of dealing with helping people deal with childcare is to be clear that that's a thing that human beings do, and not shame people or make it hard or embarrassing or whatever, and be ready to work around that. That's an appropriate thing for people to need. Just to shift a little bit too, because I think the childcare is important, but as I've knocked on doors, I've met a whole lot of people doing elder care. And I one of the things I've come away from my canvassing is thinking about programs we can support those people who have tough jobs and they're alone, and I'd like to see if there's some way we can help them.
Okay, thank you. Sally, same question.
All right, so I'm trying to avoid any Brown Act violations here with the 3 council members in the room. So childcare is extremely important and is such an emotional issue. Looking back, I was blessed. I won't talk about why, but my children basically got another grandmother out of the deal. But I agree with Ibrahim. This is, our budget is what, 57 million this year? We don't have the resource to provide that necessarily. Though I do like the thought of, how HR say, well, we have a voucher program, and if you want to use it on the gym or you want to use it on transportation or something like that, because I firmly believe that elder care is important as well. We've got an elderly population. So I would prefer to look at a voucher program, see if the county or the state can help us, and try to address all the care concerns in our community.
Okay, thank you. Eric, same question.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when we used to have a sign up there that said it was a great place to raise a family. And it's supposed to be, and it still should be. But raising a family is tough under the best of circumstances. I agree with everything that my colleagues here have said. And it is true, it's an extraordinarily expensive thing. It's also expensive on both ends, that is the young and the old. And we have to think of them as being a common problem. There's money out there, we don't have it, so we need to go get it. Ibrahim picks brains, I'll pick pockets, if that's what it takes. We need to be able, there's money out there, we need to go find it, and we need to bring it home to our people.
Okay.
Lisa? That's your job.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So for this next question, we're going to go first to Ibrahim, then to Larry, Sally, Eric, and Jonathan. So the question is, the Los Altos Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, approved in 2022 aims to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035. What are your thoughts about the possibility of reaching it sooner? And how can citizens be encouraged to adopt carbon neutral practices in their own lives? Ibrahim, to you first.
Yes, thank you. We only have a minute to answer, but I have to say, Eric, you're hilarious, and I would love to serve with you.
I'll give you 5 seconds of my time.
So first, I'll say, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan is very comprehensive, and it's a really well-written document. I would say there are low-hanging things that we could do, and then there are some long-term things that we could do. On the quick wins aspect of it, I think sometimes people are unaware to the degree to which the federal government is incentivizing people to go fully electric, to get into solar, to get into heat pumps. And I think we recently launched a webpage that actually explains a lot of that. But I think just as a product builder, you could go several steps further. You could make it really, really easy to find a contractor to streamline the permitting process and the rebate process. So that's where I would start.
Okay, thank you. Larry, same question.
Yeah, I think I'm actually quite concerned about whether we'll hit the target, and there's a particular reason why, which is that in Berkeley, or the Berkeley Restaurateurs Association, sued to overturn some of the mandates to electrify and succeeded. So those mandates have been taken off the table, and that tool is no longer available. The plan as written requires or expected to have that tool available. And so I think it's appropriate to reopen the plan and look what we need to do to achieve the goals that I think are so very important. What we have to focus on then is what we can do to be constructive and positive. And that is about encouraging people to take these steps and streamlining it. Permitting is a very important aspect of that. Particularly hot water heaters are going to become illegal on January 1st, 2027. And we're going to have a lot of work to do to prepare for that, both in terms of the permitting process and helping people get the rebates they need to respond to that.
Thank you. Sally.
Okay, so there's the climate, there's the action, and there's the adaptation. And so we've kind of been focusing on action, which is how we achieve that goal, but adaptation, resilience in the face of climate disasters is very important. With that said, I'm not going to address that. That is a big part of the plan. One thing we need to do better is track our plans, just like we're tracking the housing element in our council packet. So we should see all those programs. We should see the progress we made on them. We've identified as a council right now, but we're going to give the Environmental Commission some homework to do to go and incentivize electrification in existing homes. This is actually the iceberg below the water level, where there's a lot more homes than the new ones that were affected by the REACH codes. So I think that's one way to focus. I'm on Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and we can avail ourselves of the programs they have to help us do that.
Thank you. Eric.
I grew up in an all-electric house that my parents built in 1953. I didn't cook on a gas stove until I was on my own at an embarrassingly advanced age. So I don't know what you all are not, avoiding here. What we need to do is, and again, I will agree with all of my friends here, we need to go out and tell people, we need to evangelize electrification. That's it. That's the only way we're going to get there. Now, whether we can get there within the time that we set, et cetera, that there are a lot of questions go there. But we need to aim at that. We can't give up the goal, even if we're going to miss it. But we need to push electrification. It's that simple. Communicate. I'll stand on the street corners and yell. How about that? I'll walk to the street corner, then I'll yell.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, same question.
Thank you. I think Eric really summarized everything very well. I mean, electrification is the way to go. The first part of your question was, can we reach carbon neutrality sooner than 2035? And I regret to say that I don't think that we can. Certainly not with the plan that we have in place right now. That being said, this is an issue that is very important to me. I know it's very important to Sally. Both of us are endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters and 350 Silicon Valley Action. We need to take a hard look at our climate action and adaptation plan. About a month ago, I asked the City Council to agendize doing just that. So I think when the new council is in place in January, hopefully the new mayor will agendize that. We're going to open the document back up and take a very hard look at it. That document really required a lot more electrification than the law allows us to move forward with, but there are incentives that we can give that will help the community move forward, and I think we can be carbon neutral by 2035.
Okay, thank you. All right, so for this question, the order is going to be Jonathan, Larry, Sally, Eric, Ibrahim. We're just going to follow along the order that you guys are seated in, make it a little easier for you for this one. So the question is, this will likely be the last at-large election for council. What factors should be prioritized in creating 5 districts? And we're going to start with Jonathan.
Oh boy. Let me start off by saying that I hate the idea of going to districts. And I hate that one of my legacies as mayor is going to be the mayor who led us to districts. I believe that I speak for a supermajority of the city council that none of us want to do this. This is something that is designed to divide us as a community, not to unite us. And in fact, it is going to disenfranchise 80% of the voters. Instead of voting for 5 council members every 4 years, you're going to vote for 1 council member every 4 years. That is bad for the community. In terms of what we should be looking at, I think we need to make sure that there is an incentive for future council members who are going to come after us to have to work together, to make sure that someone who represents the hotels at the northernmost part of the city also has an interest in working with someone who represents the Grant Park neighborhood. It's a challenge, but it's one we absolutely have to find a way to master.
Thank you. Larry, same question.
Yeah, I agree that it can be, it's somewhat of a disappointing thing, particularly I find it melancholy, wistful, because I'm going to neighborhoods that, I know they exist and stuff, but I don't spend as much time there and learning and realizing that, in the end, in an election, you have a limited number of days and people just aren't going to be able to do that anymore. They're going to have to walk whatever district they're in. I do think it's we have to complete the task, right? The penalties are too severe if we don't complete the task. We have to do that. This council has done a good job of not wasting money on silly lawsuits, and we can't depart from that. But I do think after it's in place, it is worth taking a little time and saying, are there things that we could do to achieve, in fact, the stated goal of districting, which is to help minorities be better represented? Are there other systems that could become available, particularly if the state government, and if you don't like it, you should write the state representatives, the state government could make some changes to improve with, say, ranked choice voting or other options that could better achieve the stated goal.
Thank you. Sally.
Okay, so good comments. I won't repeat them. So I do agree that the strategy after we put the by district elections in place, assuming that is what council chooses to do, is important. What are the next steps? Some of those can be forward-looking and involve lobbying and legislation, and others have to be what we do on the ground here. So I hope our districts take a shape. I know we're looking at sort of rectangles, but I hope they're really circles that capture community centers, and that's what it turns into. In reality, the districts don't necessarily matter except for the voting. We don't need passports to go into the district next door, right? So it doesn't need to change our lives. But we do need to make sure we get trained and qualified people who are willing to step up for the elections, because we don't want to see what happened in Campbell, which was the last time they had 3 districts, and there was unchallenged people walking onto council in each of those 3 districts. We want qualified people.
Eric.
I want to thank Jonathan for taking one for the team. I agree with all of the sentiments expressed about district elections, but they are what we have. One of the things that's been very disappointing to me in this process, and there have been a lot of meetings, so I've been very happy about that part of it. It's the only part I'm happy about, is we're drawing lines that have no meaning, except suddenly they're given a great deal of meaning by the people who find themselves on what they think is the wrong side of the line. I hate that, because we don't need it. It's not a value of Los Altos to draw lines that way. And yet here we are. The one hopeful thing I see is that possibly it will improve the engagement of those people who aren't paying attention. If you can only walk a small area, about a square mile, or a little bit over a square mile, and you can actually knock on every single door, and maybe you can get people to turn out. As far as the cooperation, what we need to do is make sure the norms cannot change. It's in the norms now. We have to keep it there, that you work for the city, not for your district.
Thank you. Okay, and Ibrahim, same question.
Yeah, I'll also just agree with everybody else that I disagree with districting as something we should do. You know, anytime you're faced with a decision, you have to ask yourself, what problem are we solving? I haven't really been able to answer that one. I think something we could do better is explain to residents what's happening and why it's happening. It is one of the more common questions I get as I go door to door. So I think just some more education around the changes and the implications for your average resident would be good. You had asked earlier about what specifically should we do. One is, I think we need to engage the average Los Altan so that they are more civic minded, because that is going to become even more paramount as we move to districts. And then 2, we need to educate residents that looking for leaders who have mostly collaborative bones in their body versus combative bones in their body is going to be important, because the system will be designed to divide versus unite. And lastly, I'll just agree with Larry. I think representation of more minorities would be great.
All right. So for this question, we are going to go Sally, Eric, Ibrahim, Jonathan, Larry. And the question is, I was just going to do this one and then do Okay. All right. So we are going to go in that order. And the question I'm going to ask you is the final question that you were all given in advance. And that is, ask and answer a question about a topic you wish we had asked about. And we'll start with Sally.
All right. So the question is, what is your agenda if you serve on council? My answer is, an agenda is different than priorities. You hear a lot about priorities in these meetings and these forums. And what we've also seen is that they're largely consistent among us and already generally identified by council as goals. An agenda, on the other hand, is about who you intend to serve. So is your agenda self-focused, for example, maybe friends and family? Is it about special interests, so maybe pro this or anti that? Or maybe you're focused on or even financed by outside interests? Or is your agenda focused on our community as a whole and what's best for all of us? I believe that we serve for all of us, and I have proven that I will do that. My agenda is Los Altos.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have Eric.
4 years ago, I was contemplating running for the council, and I asked the question of a group that had invited me to talk to them, what do you think Los Altos will be like in, I forget whether I said 5 years or 10 years, but anyway, some point in the future? And they looked among themselves for a little while, and they said, well, pretty much the way it is now. And I was very happy they didn't turn the question back on me, because I would have said, you won't know it, right? It's going to change a lot. What I hope doesn't change, however, is what's inside us, the values that we have. We know that there are going to be more buildings. We know that it's going to be denser. We know that the problems we have now will, in some sense, seem easy because they will have gotten worse. That's inevitable. There's nothing we can do to stop some of that. But we can make sure that we keep the neighborliness, the respect for this place and its history and its environment paramount in our thoughts. The values of being a Los Altan are the most important thing to keep, and that won't change.
Okay, thank you. And Ibrahim.
Sorry, so we're asking and answering a question.
Asking and answering a
Sorry,
question.
I was thinking of an answer to Sally's question. All right, I'll save it for later.
No.
I was going
you
to
can
say,
answer
what's your
own
favorite
question.
cookie recipe in that?
All right, sorry.
No, you're good.
So, my question is really about representation and belonging. I think it's really, really important. I agree with Sally that anybody on council should represent all Los Altos residents. And going back to the theme of what are people hearing when they go door to door, I feel a lack of civic engagement, partly because people feel like they don't really belong. I think we're living in a post-COVID era where a lot of people have moved in, a lot of people have moved out, and the things that have made this town amazing over the decades are harder and harder to grasp and see day to day. And so I think there's a lot of families looking for somebody to show them that there is a path to that sense of belonging. And the way I'm going to do that is to engage, to reach out, to listen, to come up with creative ways for people who are maybe slightly jaded and slightly cynical in this day and age to find a way back to participate in this amazing community.
Thank you. All right, Jonathan.
All right. The question that I wish that I was asked is, what is the most important issue that the City Council will face next year that few people are talking about? And I think the answer to that is that our contract with County Fire is up in 2025. For those who don't know, while we have our own police department, we do not have our own fire department. We contract fire services out to County Fire. I'm generally happy with the service that we've gotten from County Fire, but now is the time to negotiate an even better deal for the city. The fire department should do three things: fire suppression, education, and fire prevention. I think that County Fire is doing a very good job with fire suppression and with education, but I think that when it comes to prevention, there's an opportunity to improve. The easiest fires to put out are the ones that never start, and while we're getting better services, I really think that the city needs to focus on all three areas of service that we want from County Fire and make sure that we negotiate the best deal possible for the residents, because it's going to be a very important and long-term deal.
Great, thank you. And Larry.
So I'll go in a different direction. One of the things that happens when you're campaigning like this is you're given endless questionnaires, all sorts of questionnaires to answer all sorts of questions. And one that I didn't get to answer, but I really enjoyed was a questionnaire, which was, what figure in history informs the way you think about doing this kind of work if you were elected? And I thought about that. And I thought, there's an answer for me. And the answer is Harry Truman. I've had the privilege of going to his presidential library in Independence, Missouri. There's two things in particular that I like about Harry Truman. One is he never graduated from college, but man, he read a lot. He knew a lot about history, so much so that he talked about like emperors of Rome as if they were his friends. And what it gave him was a sense of perspective and a real appreciation and enjoyment, frankly, of the human beings that you interact with doing this work. The other thing was that he didn't care about getting credit for things. The Marshall Plan was really his plan, but he knew the only way to get passed was to not have it named after him. It was one of the most important pieces of diplomacy of the 20th century. As he said, there's no limit to what you can achieve if you don't worry about who's going to get the credit.
Okay, thank you. All right, and now we are at closing statements. So the order for closing statements is going to be Larry, Jonathan, Ibrahim, Sally, and then Eric. So Larry, we'll start with you. 1 minute closing statement.
So first of all, thank you. Thank you to the people who are here in person, and thank you to the people who are watching later. Democracy is a participation sport, so the fact that you're investing the time to listen to these answers is really compliment that you're taking the job seriously. I would point out we're not faraway creatures. One of the fun things about a local election is if you want to talk to us, you can just reach out. We'll come talk to you either in person or by phone, whatever, right? And I've had an enjoyable time with people who have not taken us for some sort of celebrity and just wanted to talk to us. Please do that. Please do that. I want to hear more about those things. In the meantime, my website, losaltoslarry.org, check it out. There's stuff there. It's also a way you can find out how to get in touch with me. And also you can see that people who have done this job before, 9 former mayors have endorsed me. And I appreciate their vote of confidence, and I hope I can earn your vote of confidence on November 5th or before.
Thank you. Okay, Jonathan.
Thank you. I've made this observation before, and I'm going to make it again. I think that a lesson that we can learn from tonight's forum and prior public engagements is that the residents of Los Altos, the voters, have 5 very good qualified candidates from whom to choose. That is a wonderful position for the voters to be in, and it's a great position. It bodes great for the future of the city. Sally and I bring not just experience, but a proven record of protecting the taxpayers' money while bringing positive change to the community. If reelected, my priorities, not just my agenda, but my priorities, will be to secure funding for a new police station and repair our firehouses, make much needed improvements to our parks and libraries, and to ensure that our children and their caregivers have safe routes to school. I am endorsed by Anna Eshu, Josh Becker, Mark Berman, Joe Simidian, but I think most importantly, I'm endorsed by 11 former mayors of the city of Los Altos. I'm following in their footsteps, and I respectfully request your vote so I can do it for another 4 years.
Thank you. Ibrahim.
Yeah, so I'd like to start this finishing statement just by saying thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to all the people who helped put this forum on. Thank you to everybody watching live and people listening after. I think if we can even get a handful of more people civically engaged through this process, that will have been an amazing win. The second thing I want to say is I just love Los Altos. That is the main reason I'm running. This town has been good to me. It's the only home I've ever lived in. I feel like I am a fabric of the community and I want to go deeper there. I feel like it's my town and I want to represent it and do the best job I can. And even though I may be at an age where I am still in the prime of my career and still juggling 3 young kids, I feel the calling to serve and I want to follow that calling. I'll also just call out, we're not going to solve any of the problems we talked about today on an island alone. We have to collaborate with everybody from the larger county to the broader region to neighboring cities to school board. And I've been endorsed by current and former LASD board members, by the Santa Clara County Democratic Party, by former mayor, by climate action groups, and going back to Jonathan's P0 priority of a new fire safety situation, the firefighters union. So thank you.
Thank you. Sally.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, and everyone else that everybody said. Appreciate it. So as a council, we actually changed Los Altos' mission this year to be more inclusive. I fully support that revised mission to be a sustainable, vibrant, and inclusive community in which to live, work, visit, and play. I support solutions that enable us to share our limited resources and deliver what we each need to thrive and be safe in service of our mission. I've also proven my commitment and ability to work collaboratively. You will see on my website, sallyforlosaltos.com, the myriad of endorsements I have. 11 former mayors, Congresswoman Anna Eshu, County Supervisor Joe Simidian, the people that Jonathan mentioned, lots of community members, and I'm running out of time. I have proven through my decisions and actions these past 4 years that I am forward-looking and an empathetic leader. I would be honored to represent Los Altos for another 4 years, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Eric.
I want to join my colleagues here in saying thank you to everybody. I will say one thing about running for city council, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad it's coming to an end, but it's a lot of fun. And to close, I just want to ask you for your vote and for your confidence that I can put my experience and my expertise to work to find Los Altos solutions for Los Altos problems and to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the people in Los Altos. It's simple, it's straightforward, that's all there is to it. So thank you for your attention, thank you for coming out, thank you for avoiding that other unimportant event that was going on this evening. And please, vote vote early, vote often, and and tell a friend. No matter what you think, no matter whom you like, go tell a friend.
Okay, thank you. So I want to thank everyone for participating tonight and all the volunteers who made this forum possible. The League of Women Voters believes that a democratic government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens. And we hope that the insights that you've gained tonight from the forum is going to help in planning your vote. If you want to look at a personalized ballot, you can check out vote411.org to see profiles of the candidates and answers to questions posed by the League. Feel free to also visit our website, lwvlamv.org, to see our election events and links to recordings of those that have already occurred. You can obviously watch this as many times as you'd like. If you want to watch it 4 or 5 times, go ahead. We'd love it. For the November 5th general election, please vote early, deposit your signed ballot in a ballot drop box or mailbox as soon as possible. And that concludes our forum. Thank you all for helping make democracy work.
One vote only.